we've got Mike. Well, let's see. Yeah, Mike from South Carolina. No pronouns given. What's more dangerous for atheists? Muslims enforcing Sharia law or Christian nationalists? So, Mike, usually I just ask you to explain something, but I want to set a little bit of a context here in case we go down a road that is going to be a big waste of time. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, I am an attorney, and one of the things I bristle at is when people make claims that Muslims are enforcing Sharia, are using the courts to enforce Sharia law in the United States. That is not happening. There are contracts that are entered into private individuals, and in our country, private individuals who enter into contracts can call a court in to force the other party to perform their end of the contract. That's one of the things that makes this country really good to do business in, is if you make a promise with somebody, it's got the force of law behind it. If in my contract, I can write anything I want. I can say, hey, if we get into a dispute, we'll settle it by a flip of a coin. If we get into a dispute, we're gonna settle it under Maryland law or Texas law, or we're gonna settle it under the laws dictated that apply only when you're in space. I could do anything. Some people in their community say, if we get into a dispute, we will settle it according to Sharia law. That's a valid contract. If we get into a dispute, I come to court, the judge is going to say, your contract says you have to settle this by Sharia law. Now the legal question is, what did you intend in this particular circumstances? And the court will then say you have to follow that. So I had to go through that. The courts are not coming in and saying, abide by Sharia law, all of you citizens. It is literally only contract disputes where the parties themselves said Sharia law will apply. So that may not be what you're talking about, but I wanted to bring that up because I have seen this coming up again and again recently. And it used to be big about 5 years ago. Fox News was putting out a bunch of misinformation. So, Mike.
Be scared of the brown people.
That's right. So, Mike, as what's more dangerous for atheists, Muslims enforcing Sharia law or Christian nationalists, can you please explain what you mean by that and ask us that question?
Yeah, sure. No, that was interesting what you said. That's not what I was talking about as far as a personal contract. I meant as an atheist. You know, you're looking at Christian people, religious people, trying to force laws down your throat, and you're very concerned about that, and probably should be. You have protection under the Constitution, right? I mean,
no, I don't.
Supposedly.
No, I don't.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't have protection under the Constitution. I have protection because there are people who agree with the Constitution and they have guns. And those people with the guns will enforce a judge's decision that is following the Constitution. But we have seen over the last, 100 days or so, that Constitution is going away. We have somebody in my own state. I am in Maryland. There was a resident of my state who was thrown out of this country and sent to an El Salvadorian concentration camp without any due process. And the administration has repeatedly said, we're not going to lift a finger to bring them back. If ICE shows up at my door today and tells me, we think that this one ICE agent has a checklist. We think that you satisfy at least 8 points on this checklist. They're going to lock me up and throw me out of the country, and then I won't be able to get back in. So I'm going to take exception to say that we have protections from the Constitution. We have Christian nationalists who are taking over my government so that they can deny due process to, as Dave so wisely put it, brown people. So,
or any
continue.
Subversive individual, right? Including white American-born citizens.
Right. That wear glasses or are intelligent or are professors at a school. Mm-hmm. So I like to jump on premises early, so I apologize for that tiny rant, but that is what my whole opening statement is about. The Constitution is being perverted by white Christian nationalists on the Supreme Court, especially Thomas Alito. Kavanaugh is a hack. He follows whatever they want to do. Gorsuch and Roberts are kind of middle, but they're just going along with it. So we have 5 white Christian nationalists and 4 white Christian nationalists, 1 African-American Christian nationalist who are doing away slowly but surely with the protections that the Constitution used to afford. But that said, please continue with your question.
Okay, I mean, that's important. How do you explain the black Christian nationalists? But how did that happen? I thought brown people were bad and he's brown.
So I
Black,
think
brown is
that,
different.
yeah, I think that you've probably heard or seen all sorts of stories, either historical or fictional, of people, no matter what their station. Let's call it Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher in Great Britain came from humble beginnings. She was sort of not involved in politics. She was not in the ruling elite. At some point, she got into power. And what did she do? She turned around and told everybody that was in Parliament, quick, lock the doors. Don't let those people that I came from get in here. Right? That's what she did. You see that time and time again. And that happens to anybody. So if we're talking about Thomas, that is definitely what Thomas has done. He has used his religious fervor and his resentment of whatever he resents about the Constitution to lock the doors and say, I got mine, Jack. None of y'all are getting yours. I'm sitting pretty. That's my answer to that.
Are you like 100% on that, confident, or is that just a guess?
I've read a lot of his opinions. He is worse than Rehnquist as far as pretending to have a method to interpret the meaning of the Constitution, but making it up to do whatever the hell he wants to. And the only explanation I have in response to your question as to why this one person isn't white is what I just gave you, that anybody can be corrupted by power, either financial, political, or religious power. The man is documented as having taken tons of fiduciary benefits from people who have been arguing cases in front of him, and he hasn't recused himself. I don't think you want to point to Thomas and start asking questions about his motivations. So why don't we get back to the point? Muslims enforcing Sharia law versus Christian nationalists. What's your question?
Okay, but I mean, that was not reasonable. What you said is, if he disagrees with you, he's corrupt. I mean, come on, you got no evidence.
That's not what I said.
Threw out a little thing at den. That's
not what I said.
Whoa.
That's not what I said. You can rewind it later, but let's go on.
All right. We'll big time agree to disagree. That was not cool. Anyway, I'm looking at the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. So you are protected from religions. And I am protected from religions. The reason it's in there, and you disagree with me, or maybe, hopefully you agree, is when this thing was put together, our Constitution, the amendments, they had a state church out in England, and nobody wanted that here because churches get corrupt as fast as corporations do.
Lots of people wanted it here.
My understanding.
I think I'm agreeing with your point, but why do you think my state is called Maryland?
I don't know.
You had to attend Catholic church in Maryland or you would be punished by law, but when it was a colony. It's a Catholic colony. So there's this a little bit of a myth. Let me say, I agree with your point generally. There is a little bit of a myth that everybody in the United States wanted separation of church and state. If you read the literature and the motivations and the personal testimony of people who were leaving, there is that. But the reason they wanted separation of church and state is they wanted to do their own puritanical weird shit, and the church was getting down on them in England. So they wanted to come somewhere where they could do their own thing, which oftentimes included discriminating against other religions. So small, tiny point, but not everybody wanted this. This was a point that, for example, it wasn't in the original Constitution. It had to be an amendment. So go ahead. It
doesn't matter. I mean, the history is great to know, but the point is that it's being dismantled now. Today, yes. We're seeing the erosion of the separation of church and state now. Christian nationalists that are ignoring the Constitution to put right. They can use whatever rhetoric they want, whatever justification they want. If they do what they want to do and violate the Constitution, we just all have to deal with it. And that's why my answer to your question, even though we haven't really formulated it properly yet in this interaction, is that I live in America where Christian nationalists are trying to take away my freedoms. I don't live in Iran. If I lived in Iran, I would say the other one. But it's where do you live? Who's in power, right? And Christians are in power here. So,
what do you think of that, Mike?
Well, no, they're Christians are fading fast. This is a post-Christian society, but it is right. I agree.
Not at the top.
How do you define fading? How do you find fading?
Pure numbers, I agree with you, but in the high places, they're there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, before it was the culture was Christian, and now it's like the culture is you're a great example. You're calling out people as Christian nationalists. I mean, oh my gosh! And the next thing will be under hate speech, where Christian nationalists are not included or protected by hate speech. I mean, this is the first step.
Define Christian nationalist for me. Define Christian nationalist for me.
I wish you would.
I asked you to define Christian nationalism. You're accusing me of fear mongering, of using this phrase to improperly describe what's going on. What do you think that Christian nationalism means?
Well, I'll give you my take, and I'd love to hear yours.
Sure.
Christian nationalist means you're a Christian, which I am. Of course, a lot of people say they are, and they're not the real deal. But let's just say Christian. You go to a Christian church. And then nationalist means you put your United States first above a world government or UK or anybody else. So
okay, I think I see the problem with your definition. Let me jump in. Christian national, you got half of it right. It is a religious movement that is Christianity. It's a form of nationalism, but the Christian nationalism is the focus of promoting Christian values so that you can dominate in political, cultural, and social life. That's what Christian nationalism. It's not saying Christian United Statesism. You can have Christian nationalism in Europe. You can have Christian nationalism in Australia. You can have Christian nationalism in the United States. So it's not saying my country's better than everybody else. It's saying I want to use my nation. I want to gain power and use the power of my nation to promote my values within the nation.
And implement them into federal law. That's the point that we're talking about here. Right? When you're using religious justifications for teaching religion in public school science class or strip away women's reproductive rights, right? That's what we're talking about. Using religious ideas to affect federal law and take away freedom from people. Right. That's what we're talking about. And that's what we're seeing.
Exactly.
Right? We're seeing limitation of free speech. We're seeing people being deported and put into concentration camps. And the justification is always of this particular flavor. So that's where the danger is.
So what are your thoughts on that, Mike?
I mean, I kind of agree with you guys. I don't want some national religion. I love the First Amendment. It keeps religion out of government. I love that. Mm-hmm. But here's the kicker. You're like, well, we can't have Christian or any other religion in the government. But if there's no way to have nothing. There's always going to be moral decisions. Like if somebody kills somebody, we'll have a moral decision to have the death penalty or not to have the death penalty.
Okay, so let's define some terms here. This is right up my alley. So I understand what you're saying. You're saying, hey, you can't take religion out of state action because the actors are human and the actors hold religious beliefs. I agree with you totally there. That's not what it means when we say the separation of religion and government. What we mean is the laws that they pass cannot favor one religion over another. It can't establish a religion as being better. It cannot promote religious ideas as being taught by the state. But of course, okay, this is the best analogy. You've heard, I'm sure, lots of people screaming that we need to get Jesus back in public schools. They took the Bible out of schools. They didn't take the Bible out of schools, ever. You are allowed to bring as many Bibles to school as you want. You're allowed to read the Bible during your off time. You're allowed to talk to your friends about how Jesus loves them and how you're going to go to hell if you don't believe in him. You're allowed to do all of that. What's not allowed to happen is a teacher can't get on the loudspeaker like they did in as late as the 1960s in Pennsylvania and tell all of the students in a state-funded school that the Bible is true and read verses out of the Holy Book. That is what the separation of church and state separates. The government can't do that. So yes, there are lots of Christians, lots of Muslims, lots of Hindus, lots of atheists that participate in government. And I'm fine with that. We want a pluralistic society. If you listen to the cold open of the show, I talked about Gentner Drummond, the Attorney General of Oklahoma, who is about as far away from me on the political spectrum as you could probably get, and is also a Christian. And he's the Attorney General of Oklahoma, suing Oklahoma to prevent the state from establishing a Christian school. I agree with him. I don't think he's a bad person in that respect. So I'm not sure what your point is here. If you think that it's just I'm arguing that people should not use religion in their own personal decision on how to vote. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that when they vote, they can't vote for a law that says we're going to lock up we're going to forbid Muslims from immigrating to the United States, as was attempted not 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we have a lot in agreement. It's just the kind of fast and loose use of Christian nationalist. If the Supreme Court justice doesn't agree with you, they're a Christian nationalist. That's kind of.
You've brought this up twice. I'm sorry you brought it up, so I have to address it. I didn't say he was a Christian nationalist because he didn't agree with me. I said he was wrong, that he is worse than Rehnquist as far as writing opinions that are not based on the actual facts of the case. If you go read Bremerton School District, all right, 4 years ago, Bremerton School District did away with the Lemon Test that had been in place for decades, for like 70 years in the United States. It was the test that the Supreme Court used to establish whether or not any government action was unnecessarily or unconstitutionally mingling government and state. Is this violating the Establishment Clause? For 70 years, we'd used the Lemon Test. And because Mitch McConnell did what he did and played the games and we got the court that he wanted, we've got justices who came in and had been eroding that. And in Bremerton, they did away with Lemon because they didn't like it. They didn't want there to be a separation of church and state. This was the case where the football coach was praying Christian prayers in the locker room and on the field with his football team at a public school. And they said that was just fine. And why did they do that? They said, well, he's just praying before and after when he's not in a coach's role. It's not in the center of the field. It's not a lot of kids. It's over on the side and it's private. It's just him praying. This was so bad that Justice Sotomayor did something I've never seen in a Supreme Court opinion before. She included pictures in her opinion. Multiple pictures showing 50 kids surrounding a kneeling coach in the middle of the football team and cited evidence from trial, statements from trial that nobody disagreed with, that this coach would not only do this in the locker room to his kids, he would do it on the field before and after games. He would call the opposing team and say, hey, I'm going to do a Christian prayer. Come out onto the field with me. That's what I'm talking about. So please don't think that I'm some dope who doesn't know what the fuck I'm doing here. I read these opinions. I look at what's going on. And quite frankly, I am stunned, and I would not be surprised if people, Mike, you are not an idiot. I can tell. I hope this surprises you. I hope you realize that they lied in that opinion. Go read Bremerton. Go look at the evidence. They lied. And the reason they lied is because they wanted to get where we're today in the Oklahoma case. They wanted to get rid of Lemon. So now when you hear the oral arguments in Oklahoma, they don't talk about the Lemon case. They're talking about the 3 cases that are applicable that happened since the Lemon case went away in Bremerton. And they're acting like that has always been the law. This is not an innocent mistake. This is not me misreading this. Just go read the opinions. So please don't say, I think that Thomas is an idiot or a Christian nationalist because I disagree with him. He's an idiot because he's an idiot. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
We're not inventing out of thin air this assault on separation of church and state. The Christian theocrats are actively trying to achieve this. That's what's happening. You need to be aware of that and angry about it.
Yeah. And I will be your ally. If you're a Christian that gets pissed off about falsehoods being written into Supreme Court opinions knowingly, there's no excuse. You're either incompetent or you're a liar writing these majority opinions. I think it was Kavanaugh who wrote it. Well,
they're puppets.
You should be pissed as a Christian. You should not want this. When Texas passed a bill to introduce the 10 Commandments into their school last legislative session, the first person to protest was a Christian pastor who organized a group of Christians against this sort of shit. So we don't have to disagree on this. People can just be morons and still be in the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts, Mike? Sorry, I've been ranting.
You didn't say moron. You said corrupt. But
yeah, corrupt.
That's interesting.
Some chops. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, you disagree, and then you said he was corrupt, but then you backed it up, which I appreciate.
Sure.
this is where I'm going with it is, if that's bad, how do you guys feel about Sharia law stopping, not Sharia law, but Muslims saying we're going to pray 5 times a day, we're going to stop school, we're going to do this, we're going to do it in the, thing in the cities.
Ditties?
Well, I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I said they can pray as much as they want, right? Personal religious liberty, right? People can worship as they wish.
Yeah.
Right? What's the problem?
Are you saying teachers are going to stop school? Is that what you're saying? Or are you talking about students want to pray?
The students are going to stop. The teachers may stop as well. If the teacher's Muslim, they'll stop. If the students stop 5 times a day,
if that happens, right, there will be lawsuits. People like Freedom from Religion Foundation and ACLU will sue. Usually it doesn't get to the lawsuit. Okay, so Freedom from Religion Foundation is backed by a lot of Christians, mostly non-Christians, but a lot of Christians contribute to them. And they have lawyers on staff whose only job is to take reports from the public of shit like that. And the first thing they do is just write a letter. We've heard this is going on. You should know. Here's all the case law that applies. You need to stop doing this. And I'd say 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, the behavior stops. School. I had somebody come to me on Reddit. Like I'm a minor YouTuber, and I was posting something on Reddit, and they replied to me and said, "Hey, my kid just came in, and they said that the Good News Club was in the cafeteria at lunchtime handing out Christian literature." Pointed them right over to Freedom from Religion Foundation. They wrote a letter that stopped immediately. That's what happens. So, as far as Muslim teachers forcing students to stop learning and pray instead, that would be an immediate lawsuit if it happened.
And it's not happening.
And it's not happening.
Where is that happening, dude? Come on.
Correct.
Well, not yet. This takes us across the pond to Britain and such. Have you heard about what's been going on there as far as the Muslims pray in public? The Christians, when they do, they're getting jail time. We heard about that.
Christians going to jail for praying? I don't believe you.
I will cite.
So,
if they post a Facebook,
do they have a First Amendment in Great Britain?
Boom.
Do they have a First Amendment in Great Britain?
I don't know. Do they? I mean, they should. I think every state should. Why isn't everybody copy our? What's wrong with you? We got a pretty good.
France is pretty darn good at it. France stays out of religion and race to a fault. They stay out of religion and race so much that they aren't even allowed to collect data on what your race is. So they can't track patterns, which is what has led to all of the Muslim unrest, because the Muslim community was being shit on and earning less and less and being moved into slums. And the state didn't know about it because they can't track it. That's sort of one end of the spectrum of just staying out of religion and race altogether. England doesn't have a First Amendment protection for speech the way that we do. They do have some protections, but if I go to England and I am standing on the street and I call somebody a severe racial slur, I can go to jail for that. It's a different country. So I just want to set the stage for that. That's not saying I think that people should or are going to jail for praying. But usually when you hear a story that says people are going to jail for praying, there's more to the story. And it usually has something to do with the laws of that country. Much like when you hear that courts in the United States are enforcing Sharia law, and you dig into it and you realize, oh, it's a contract dispute. So do you have anything you'd like to wrap up with? We will look into that. And if we see that people are being locked up in Great Britain simply because they prayed, I would object to that.
Yeah, they were within X number of yards of an abortion clinic. That was the key indicator.
Okay.
But also, just saying anything anti-Muslim or even pro-England in front of a Muslim prayer thing out in public. These are all in public. And then Facebook posts, they're really getting hammered out there. They're getting jail time. And I don't want to see that come to America. And that's why I'm with you 100% as far as keeping religion out of our government. So if you check into it, that'd be interesting.
Absolutely. What in my cold open, when we talked about Jefferson objecting to what's happening in Oklahoma now, using tax money to hire Christian teachers to teach Christianity, he reintroduced, he wrote this bill 10 years earlier. He reintroduced a bill, and the title of that bill was A Bill for Establishing Religious Liberty. Everybody casts it as anti-religious, but separation of church and state, as the founding fathers observed it, is religious liberty. I can't come after you for being Christian. I can't come after him for being Muslim. They can't come after me for being an atheist. So I think we're all on the same page. I would encourage you, anytime you get a story about the legal system where people are getting locked up, read go find the paperwork, go find the court opinions, go find the orders and read them, and don't trust any one media source, because oftentimes it will be incomplete and misleading on both sides of the spectrum. Liberals are way not portraying what's going on in the Supreme Court accurately, as well as the conservatives. So go to original sources, find somebody who's actually looking at that to tell you what actually happened, because 9 times out of 10, when somebody says, I got arrested and locked in jail because I took 3 seconds longer to give the cop my driver's license. And then you actually see the video and it was like, well, that was the initial problem. And then you resisted arrest and ran and reached for your pocket and a whole bunch of crazy shit. Not that I love cops, but there's always more to the story typically. And it gets reported by the news as man arrested for not having a driver's license or something like that. So.
And also beware of rhetoric that
Agreed.
demonizes brown people.
Yes, good point, Dave. Do you want to expand on that, Dave?
It's pretty self-explanatory, right? Islamophobia is being used to justify Western foreign policy, and they need us to. It's been, I mean, for decades, right? Since Persian Gulf, and since 9/11 in Iraq and Afghanistan, obviously what's happening in Gaza. It's just brown people are bad and deserve what we do to them. That's the rhetoric, right?
Yep. All right, Mike.
What about Christian nationalism? Do you think I'm a Christian?
I don't know if you're Christian or not, and I don't know if you're a Christian nationalist or not.
It sounds like you're not. It sounds like you are for the separation of church and state. Right. I think that you're being slightly manipulated by whatever it is that you're reading that is downplaying this threat of Christian theocracy. Right? So be aware of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.